Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is episode 113 of the Meet the Farmers podcast, and I'm your host, Ben Eagle. We're talking dairy today, and I'm thrilled to be joined from South Wales by Abi Reader MBE, a third-generation dairy farmer who manages a herd of 200 Holstein Friesian and dairy shorthorns, as well as 100 sheep and 200 acres of arable on 700 acres of land near Cardiff. Abi, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank
How
you
are
very
things
much,
in South
Ben.
Wales?
Yeah, they're pretty good at the moment. End of March, so the cows are out, which is quite early for us. But yeah, really nice to have a change of routine after the winter.
So you're a third generation farmer. How long's the family been where you are now?
My grandfather on my father's side married and moved here in the early 1930s, and they've been here ever since. He had two sons. Obviously, one was my father, and the other one is my uncle Robert, and I farm with those two. But I also farm with my mum, and her parents were farming not too far from here, closer towards Cardiff, on a slightly smaller scale, and they had like a local, I suppose they supplied the village locally with groceries, and used to do a bit of milk, some pork, chickens, and a little bit of veg, and supplied the village of Rada, if anybody's familiar with it.
Shout out there. And where I take it that you just got the bug through the family.
Yeah, well, interesting background, really. We're so close to Cardiff. I'm less than 4 miles as the crow flies from the Civic Centre in Cardiff.
Wow.
From the Senates and Cardiff Castle and all that.
I didn't know that. Amazing.
Yeah, really, really close. You wouldn't know it. We're very lucky. We're in quite a little backwater, but very, very close. So I went to school right in the heart of Cardiff, and I had a very urban upbringing. So as a youngster, I was the odd one out because I liked mud and trees, and all the other girls in the school did not like those things. They liked pretty dresses and nice parties and things like that, which never really interested me. So my route towards farming was unusual. Never really thought it would be a career option. And it was only when I had finished my A-levels and I had no idea what I was going to do, as lots of kids don't at that age.
Yep.
And I just took a random phone call of somebody who supplies the business, who said, well, what are you going to do? I have no idea. And he said, well, why don't you go to agricultural college? And he just recommended a college, and I phoned up, got a prospectus, and I didn't look back from there, really. Wow. Best thing I ever did.
Yeah. Let's pause and actually let's talk about the herd. Let's talk about the cows first. What's the history of the herd, and tell me a bit about the herd and your system.
Yeah, so I've mentioned obviously my grandfather. He bought some cows with him to the farm, and the majority of the cows we've got here are descended from them. There are a couple of exceptions. Those exceptions are the ones descended from my mother's father. So I feel really privileged that I've got the bloodlines from both sides of the family. The dairy shorthorns obviously were the foundation. So both sets of grandparents had that breed. That was a breed everybody had around the time of the war. It's a very native British breed. It's now a rare breed. It is on the critical list and they're dying out. They were struggling at the minute with trying to get, I suppose, good enough research on genetics to make that breed keep up with the Holstein Friesian, which is just so reliable. But to honour my grandparents, we keep a nucleus herd that we will preserve, and we will fight to make sure we do our bit to stop them going extinct. Yeah, we're all year round calving. So we aim to have about 12 to 15 calves every month, which means that we supply milk at a set level all year round. So we supply what I would call the liquid market. So it's milk that goes into bottles into supermarkets. Trying to think what else I could share about that. I suppose we have invested recently in the farm. So when my grandfather moved to the farm, we had an old 1800s barn, which still stands today and is still used.
Brilliant.
But since then, there's been add-ons. So a new milking parlour was added when my father, I suppose, was my age or a bit younger. And we have recently renewed that milking parlour now. And we've been in quite a new setup for the last 6 years. And it's been life-changing, really.
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, and in terms of short-term plans for the dairy itself, do you have any plans?
Yeah, well, COVID has taught me how much people enjoy shorter supply chains and would like an opportunity to perhaps become more involved with the farm that is producing some of the food that they eat. So I am interested in looking at vending machines, maybe not on the farm, but locally vended in the villages around us, with opportunities then for anyone who's buying to come and visit us, maybe one Sunday a month or as they feel. So yeah, I'm looking at that. It's a lot of work. I'm a farmer, so I enjoy being with the cows. And once you start branching out into processing, it's a different ball game. And I guess I'm nervous that it'll take me away from the cows too much.
Let's talk about some environment stuff. So you're part of, you've got a Glassdeer Advanced program on the farm. You also work with a local wildlife group. Tell me about that.
Well, the Glassdeer Advanced is the Welsh Government scheme. So there's Glassdeer, which is sort of the, I hesitate to use the word baseline level because that's wrong, but it covers quite a wide variety of environmental things you can do on the farm, from planned hedge cutting of certain areas to, I don't know, fencing of waterways and various bits and pieces like fencing woodland or wild bird strips. And then Glassdeer Advanced, I suppose, just goes that little bit further. So we have one field on the farm that's got a burial chamber on it, an ancient burial chamber. And people come and visit that a lot, as you can imagine. It's a bit like, there's a few burial chambers in the area. So I suppose it's our sort of mini Welsh version of a Stonehenge.
Okay.
And people walk everywhere. So we have made that field open access so they can walk everywhere, and we get payments for that. So that would really be what Glassdeer Advanced is. It works quite well. I get more pleasure out of working with the local wildlife group because I can see the results. So they came to us, quite a few years ago now, and said, look, do you think you could spare a little plot of land for us to plant a few fruit trees on? Okay. They're only talking 1/4 of an acre, probably less than that.
Yeah.
We said, yeah, we would love to be involved with the community. We've now got, trying to think, I lose track. I think we've got 8 community orchards on the farm. They're all very
fantastic.
small. They're all linked
Brilliant.
up. Yep. They're restoring a pond. We've got a small corner in one field, which is a little rewilding site that they want to have a go on. Again, they're less than 1/2 acre, but I take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And clearly engagement generally is really important for you, which we'll get onto. But let's stick with dairy for now. For those outside of dairy, it can sometimes be difficult to see whether dairy is in a good or a more challenging place at any one time. You sort of see conflicting stories. And from the outside, there've been, I suppose there's the story that there've been lots of farmers who've left the industry in recent, certainly in the last 20 years. There was a wave in 2001 when my own farm, actually, we left dairy then, and a load of others in this part of the world. And it has been reducing number in terms of farm units, but at the same time, those that are in the industry, there's been a heck of a lot investment going on as well. So what's your take on where dairy is at the moment?
All the signals are telling us really that dairy is globally doing well. Demand for dairy products is rising by 2% every year globally. If you hone in on that and you look at the UK, demand is perhaps relatively static. However, there's almost, you could say there's a little bit of a decline in liquid milk, but it's being superseded by an increase in demand for cheese. Yeah. And again, over the last year, that has really taken off.
Absolutely.
During COVID, people turned to, especially cheddar, as an affordable food that they could have in the home at lunchtime, because normally they'd be going out to a canteen or I don't know, some local bakery or something, whereas they haven't had that opportunity. So cheddar has really grown, and that we've seen a changing pattern now as people have sort of crested the cheddar and are now interested in looking at other different British varieties. And if you add on top of that then Brexit, there have been a few issues. It may not have been noticed much, but there have been issues with trade. So with cheese coming in, cheese going out. So people do appear at the minute to be looking more to different British cheeses and trialing them. So, dairy looks good. You could probably divide the industry into those who supply retail, so the supermarkets, the corner shops and things like that, and those who supply food service, so the hotels. Let's think about the cruise ships, the airplanes, the airports, trains, vending machines, and those who are in the food service at the minute are the ones who are most vulnerable. But I'm sure it will come back. We just need to get through this COVID issue and things will level out, but very hard time for those guys at the minute.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I must, because otherwise Becky will crucify me at this stage. I'll do a shout out for the Kite podcast. Tune on Fridays, guys. For if you want any in-depth knowledge of dairy currently, have a look at that. Let's go back to you. Let's talk about your time at Siren. So, I mean, you did a degree in ag and you did an MBA as well in farm business management at the REU. Tell me about all that.
The Royal Agricultural University was my Harry Potter moment. That was the moment I realized I was a farmer, and how amazing to suddenly forget about geography and history and English and maths and do grass and forage and farm mech and animal health and all those amazingly exciting things. I fully embraced the student lifestyle. To the extent that it was quite nice to use the excuse to stay on for an extra 2 years and do an MBA.
You got to know the tithe barn.
Yeah.
The sticky floor.
Yeah. So yeah, I got all of that out of my system. Loved those days. Best days looking back. Yeah, really good times, good friends that I met and I'm still in touch with. So yeah, I can highly recommend university it's not for everyone, I know, but it is a great time.
Yeah. And following on from that, I mean, you've done some really interesting CPD stuff afterwards. I mean, like a management exchange program to Germany. What did you do when you were out there?
I traveled out there to look at biosecurity. It was really random. We're lucky in Wales. There is something here called Farming Connect, which gives you funding to learn. And one thing I did notice when I left uni was you suddenly stop learning and you were in danger of going home to your farm. And especially, there's not that many students around to get you back out. And you can get a little bit withdrawn and you can stop developing and growing. And I was concerned that was going to happen to me. So I'm always looking for courses. And the management exchange program came up through a variety of links. And it was an opportunity to go to Germany. I was helped by a very good vet friend, Matt Yarnell, who was with Bowringer. I'm just going to mention them because they were so good to me, to just get in touch with an organization and say, look, I'm looking at doing biosecurity, but I've got no idea where to start. And they organized visits for me. They hooked me up with a vet out there.
Oh, amazing.
And yeah, it was fascinating to see. Germany is a fascinating country. We're an island here in the UK. So you would think that we would be able to control animal disease that comes on and off this island. Germany, on the other hand, are a landmass with 16 different countries on their borders, and they have got better control of disease than we have. And there's a lot to learn from them. So yeah, fascinating trip.
Yeah. So you've also done the RABDF Entrepreneurs in Dairy course. What did that involve?
Yeah, so that was another one. Again, that was just, especially I was thinking ahead. I might do a vending machine in the future. Haven't really got a clue where to start. Although I'd done an MBA, that was a long time ago. I felt like I needed a bit of a refresher in terms of, getting on top of business. And again, lots of these courses, I don't necessarily always do them for the content. It's as much for the networking and the connections you can make from that. So yeah, another excellent course, really, just to keep your horizons open, stop you getting stuck in your ways.
I want to talk about Cows on Tour. For anyone who hasn't heard about it, what is it and why did you start it?
Right, Cows on Tour is an initiative that is run by, I always say farmers, and I never actually mean farmers. I mean people who work within the agricultural industry. We will go usually into schools, take it over for the whole day and talk about food and farming. It was started, 6 years ago now.
Was it actually?
Wow. Yeah.
Blimey, time flies.
I know. A bit of a mixture of an experience from Open Farm Sunday and an experience from another course that I'd been on in Brussels, and which sort of inspired me to, think we've really got to start standing up for our industry. And when you get talking to farmers, I was talking to neighbours, and we all just sort of came upon this idea. And basically we were going to visit a school in London and tell them about food and farming. And I guess we all got carried away because these children in London were in quite a low income area, a really broad range of ethnicity. So these kids were from everywhere, and we just wanted to take them a little bit of the countryside and a little bit of Wales. So at approximately 3:30 in the morning, 6 years ago, 16 farmers, 2 chickens, a wooden milking cow, and a whole load of other homemade props left for London. We landed at this school and we were there for the whole day. We were absolutely shattered by the end of it, but gosh, we were on such a high by the end of it. And Cows on Tour has gone on ever since. We did a road show 2 years ago, which was crazy. And yeah, the whole industry's just sort of got behind it. It's been amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, a few years ago, you were on the NFU's National Dairy Board. Can you give us the view from the inside? What's it like to be on an NFU board?
Okay, well, yeah, there's an opportunity on all of the national NFU dairy boards for appointed places. So normally to get on a board, you have to be voted on, which means for some people, especially if you come from a big area, there can be a lot of competition and you may never make it. But there is this opportunity for appointed places. And again, if you do lots of CPD and learning and networking and things like that, these can help propel you onto these boards. And I was lucky to get an appointed place onto the dairy board. Incredible, absolutely amazing. I was an appointee and I was on there for 2 years, and there was an opportunity to stay on for another 2 years. And I decided that I had a really good opportunity there and I should step back and give somebody else a go, because otherwise you block up the places. But I left that board 2 years ago with the promise to myself that I would go back as a fully elected member. And that's what I did. And I managed to get myself elected as the dairy board chair for NFU Cymru, and now I sit on the National Dairy Board again. And I was in the meeting today. Fascinating. We talked about gene editing, carbon footprinting, red tractor. There's a few controversial things going around at the minute from some anti-animal organizations. You name it, we talk about it. You are at the cutting edge of change for farming, and if you want to make a difference, that's where you need to be. And yeah, amazing opportunity.
So in 2019, you were awarded an MBE, but there's a story behind this, which I want to hear the inside story on it. You almost missed out on actually getting it due to the acceptance deadline. What happened?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. The letter had obviously been delayed. Our post is always late here. And it had obviously been to quite a few different places before it finally landed on my farm. And I happened to be away at the time on the Cows on Tour roadshow. So I was in a school in Aberystwyth, and I got a phone call from home saying there's a really unusual letter here. You are not going to be home for a few days. Do you want me to open it? And I was like, yeah, you carry on. I'm busy. And then the phone rang again. And it was like, oh my God, you're not going to believe this. And we'd missed the deadline date. And I was there then in the middle of the school playground trying to email to say, uh-oh, is it too late? Can I, help me?
But massively well deserved. Right, we're now going to move on to the part of the show where we talk about wider industry challenges. And we can't talk about dairy, especially out west, without talking about TB. Usually when I talk about TB, because it comes up every few months, I just ask for an update from your part of the world, really. That's probably question number one.
Okay, well, TB in Wales, talk about Wales as a whole. If you look at the figures that are being released by Welsh Government, they will say that new herd incidents are declining slightly. And I suppose length of breakdowns, variable. There's the figures released by Welsh Government, and then there's the real life sort of stories that you come across all the time. In the farming world in Wales, TB is really bad. It's the one thing that gets everybody rattled. It causes a lot of sadness, a lot of stress, not just for the farmers as well. I mean, for the vets who live through it with us, and for our nutritionists or anybody really who's dealing with the farm, they all live with you through it. It's particularly bad. So Wales is divided into 3 zones. There's the low incidence area, the intermediate, which is what I'm in, and the high risk area. So there's a high risk area, particularly down in the southwest of Wales. And some people there have been in and out of TB for 16 years. I have had my own experience of TB breakdown, probably going into my 3rd year now, on and off. Okay. Never experienced it before that. We'd had almost a 10-year history of being able to prove that we were TB clear, and suddenly we went down with it. During that time, I have lost, in my first breakdown, I lost 13 animals, and I'm in the middle of my second breakdown now. 5 animals have gone already. I was saying to a farmer in England the other day, in England, you have the badger cull areas, which are all, that, despite what the press might portray to the public, these are very well controlled areas. There is a lot of work that goes into these badger cull areas. People just don't go running out in the countryside with a gun because they want to have fun. There's a lot of science that goes into this, and it is backed by Natural England. Yep. We don't have that in Wales. There's no help coming. Nobody seems to care. And the impact that it's having on lives is really quite distressing. On this farm and in parts of West Wales now, we have started a pilot, which has taken quite a while to get to, but has required a lot of I suppose lobbying with AFA in Wales and with Welsh Government to say, let us try this. And this is for private testing, because I just don't have any faith in the testing that's going on, and I do not want to lose control. So actually this week we have started private testing. I've done 60 animals. It could all go wrong, because I have agreed that if I private test and I find any animals with TB, then I will have to pay for that myself. Okay. And I will have to get rid of them myself, but I will not lose control, and I will not go down without fighting for my herd. And wow. we just have to keep doing what we can, really, and hopefully we can pass it on to someone else.
Yeah, and with the risk of getting too political, I mean, why do you think there is such a difference in attitude between England and Wales?
Well, at the risk of getting too political, look, we have a Labour government in Wales and we have a Conservative government in England. There are a lot more rural constituencies in England, so therefore the MP profile, I suppose, that goes forward to government is a lot more reflective of rural issues. If you come to Wales, it's really not. And living in an urban area, I feel like I definitely feel that more than perhaps a lot of farmers who are out in the countryside. And there is a very limited understanding of rural issues. And if I was going to be really pessimistic, no one really seems to care. And that's why things like Cows on Tour were born, because, we have to show people why they need to care. We can't just blame everyone and say, oh, you hate us and this, that, and the other. We haven't even tried to connect. But at the same time, I won't sit around either. I don't do that. My herd is under threat, and I will do whatever I can to save them.
Following on from that, and semi-linked in some ways, want to talk about NVZs, another farming acronym for any non-farmers out there, nitrate vulnerable zones. And you actually came on the Kite podcast to talk about this a few weeks ago. So we've now got an all Wales NVZ in action. I mean, what impact do the new rules have on you and your business?
Yep. So not very zen is the NVZ word.
Like that.
Yeah, I think, look, the big issue with NVZs is our own Environment Agency here in Wales says that we currently have 2.3% of Wales is under NVZs. And they did a study back in 2016, 2017, which said that this area ought to increase to about 8% because there were certain waterways that were starting to come under threat. So we have this recommendation on the one hand, and then we have our own government recommendation, which says, well, actually, why not just do the whole 100% and chuck everybody under it? And it requires so much investment and puts so much strain on businesses. And, we need to be very concerned about the tenant farmers. So those are the ones whose landlord may not want them to suddenly start investing in slurry stores or digging ditches, planting hedges, whatever it might be to try and control that water. We need to be concerned about problems like TB. So when I broke down with TB for the first time, and we were broken down for 15 months, my animal stocking rate increased from 404 animals up to 593. Wow. So I would have breached my NVZ regulations because I wouldn't have had enough storage for that. And yet I couldn't move animals anywhere because there was nowhere for them to go. So all of these stresses and strains have to come in. And, to go from 8% to 100% and require farmers to invest money they don't have in equipment that they clearly don't need because there isn't a problem in that area just makes no sense. So, yeah, really, really big bone of contention at the minute with ourselves. It put up quite a war really between ourselves and the government. I've never known anything like it.
I'm not going to go on. Not going to go on with that one, but I will actually. I mean, is this the end of the story?
No, it's not the end of the story. So there was Welsh government released this back in January. An opposition party, Plaid Cymru, put in a vote to say, well, actually, let's overthrow this because this is crazy. That vote happened, it was about a fortnight ago now, and we lost by 2 votes, which actually it was really, really close.
Wow.
Really, really close. I suppose it perhaps wasn't a massive surprise because, again, we're dealing with some very urban areas, so may not necessarily be very high up on their radar. What we did do is NFU Cymru has put in a legal letter. Wasn't a legal challenge, but it was a letter to say we are thinking about doing a legal challenge. We've had a response from that now, and all I can say is we're still working through this. So, keep watching the episodes.
Yeah. Carbon footprint is a big one.
Yep.
How far off do you think we are from accurately and usefully measuring farming impact in terms of carbon on a farm scale, on a practical farm scale in terms of what farmers can actually do on the ground?
Yeah, bit of a conundrum, really. The NFU aspiration is to be carbon neutral by 2040. I believe we'll make that. How far are we off working it out on our own farms? I mean, some farms claim they can do it already. I think it's just a case of narrowing down exactly how much carbon is in grassland, how much carbon is in soil, how much carbon is in other crops and trees. And it's quite hard to work it out. Hedgerows would be a typical one. It's really hard to know exactly how much carbon they're capturing. I would say we're only about 5 years away from knowing precisely all those things, but even though we don't know everything at the minute, we can measure quite a lot, and there is a lot that we can be doing, and we do actually have quite a nice little story to tell and a lot to offer in terms of the contribution that the planet is going to make to being net zero.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on in the show that you've been thinking about possibly selling more direct, perhaps. What are your plans for the future?
I suppose we've grown on the farm now as much as I want to grow. When I came home from college, we were 150 cows. Now we're 200, maybe pushing sort of 210. I'm happy with that. I don't want to get any bigger. It's a whole different ball game. We've invested in facilities. Massive plans really are now getting a healthy herd. I've got to get TB out, but it's not just TB. There are other diseases that we need to be, we need to get rid of. We need to get on top of antibiotic use, get it right down, get a really healthy product out there on the market that people are have the confidence to buy and are proud to buy because it's a British product. So yeah, just really getting a top condition herd, I suppose.
Yeah, and perhaps your plans outside of the farm.
Outside of the farm, I'm still involved in a lot of agricultural organisations. Yeah. I love being a part of NFU. I love, perhaps I'm nosy, I don't know. I love knowing what's going on. Got a few projects in the pipelines. Obviously, I've got the TB project. I am linked up with someone at the minute looking at a carbon project with quite a novel crop, which all sounds a bit hocus pocus to me, but hey, I'm happy to give it a go. So yeah, I like to do all sorts of little projects like that. Cows on Tour, I'm looking forward to getting that back off the ground soon. I visited a school for the first time in over 14 months the other day, and it's just really good to get out and try and have a bit of an impact and put some smiles on kids' faces, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. How has the last 12 months been for you personally?
In all honesty, life didn't really change all that much. We've been very lucky. The farm carried on. In many ways, it was quite pleasant to have more time at home. We're still doing a lot of meetings, but there was no time in the car.
Yeah.
So
it's been the big change for so many. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting through the initial lockdown and the dairy COVID crisis was horrendous. That really was quite difficult. Like everybody, we had family who caught COVID. We've seen the impact, we've seen the tragedy, as everybody I'm sure has got. all sorts of stories. But actually ourselves here on this farm, we've been very lucky, and so grateful to all of the lorry drivers who keep coming and keep coming to pick the milk up or drop the feed off or
Absolutely.
drop delivery. What an amazing, the people who worked in the retail, getting the food out and things like that, fantastic. But I just want to give a shout out for those lorry drivers. Absolute legends.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I really want to do an episode at some point called Meet the Haulier. I think that they're epic.
Yeah.
We always finish the show with the same two questions. The first is, if you had a message to the public, what would it be?
It would be ask the farmer.
Yep.
Don't ask Google, ask the farmer. We're ready to tell you. If you do not be afraid of the product you are picking up, ask the farmer.
Nice. I like that. Short and to the point. And finally, a message to your fellow farmers.
Tell the public. Get out there and tell your story. Don't leave people to speculate and make it up, because they'll probably hit on the wrong thing. And be welcoming. These people, especially young people coming up through, they're our future customers. Make them feel welcome. Make them proud in our products. Well,
we'll leave it there. But Abi, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege having you on here. It's just honestly, your absolute passion for the industry is palpable, and thank you. Please just keep on doing what you're doing, because it is massively appreciated by everyone I know. Thank you for listening as well. I am taking a week off podcasting next week, but the show will be back the week after, and quite a random one. We'll be talking about dung beetles with Claire Whittle and Bruce Thompson. Until then, have a great fortnight, and I will see you next time.